Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Live 605. This is Concast and Z. We've had some technical difficulties. Wouldn't be live without technical difficulties, of course, but it also wouldn't be alive without your company. If you're new here, put new in the comments below. A big cheerio to all of those people that are watching us on YouTube as well as Facebook and Twitter. Yes, we're pushing out to all these platforms. Why? Because we're gluttons for punishment. And we need to do this to ourselves. We need to run on the treadmill of technology. Today's show, today's live, is a very interesting one. It's one that is long overdue, but one that I have had people ask me to do time and time again. It seems that this topic has been covered on numerous occasions, but apparently it hasn't been covered enough. So I figured that I should dive in and share my thoughts on this particular, and also the accepted wisdom. I'm not suggesting for any moment now, at all, that I am the person that would be providing that wisdom. It is the accepted wisdom. People that are far more experienced than myself have commented on this particular topic. So I hope it is of interest to you. And if it is, just say hello below, so as I know that I'm actually going out live to everyone and not just talking to myself. This could be happening. I don't know. Anyway, what we're going to talk about today is brush shedding. It is an issue. It is an issue that has troubled people time and time again. And it's one of those things that, creates a lot of angst for people. They think, oh my God, what's happened? I bought a dud brush. I've spent all this money on purchasing a really good brush, and it's shedding, it's falling apart. What is going on? Why do brushes shed? Why do people go bald? Perhaps a bit of genetics, maybe there's a bit of environment involved in there. So that's what we're going to look at. Fernando, hello Fernando. Fernando is joining us on YouTube, which is fantastic. I'm glad you could join us. Hello, yes. There you go. So clearly we are going out with all these technical problems. You'll note that I'm not in my usual place again. I've decided that it's better off that we do these shows a little bit earlier. I know some people preferred them later, but of late, as I said, you may remember that we've had some rain and inclement weather, and the roads are blocked, and they're on a sort of traffic control schedule. And I think it was last Friday, it took me 3 hours to get home. No thanks. I don't want to be a part of that. David, hello from North Carolina. Hello, David. Nice of you to join us on the live, sir. It's very, very kind of you to do that. It's really, really nice. Thank you. So we're going to talk about brushes shedding, and if this is a thing, let me know. I'd like to hear about your experiences with shedding brushes. Quite often what happens is a person will purchase a brush, and within a very short space of time it will start to lose quite a bit of hair. And we're going to look at this phenomenon from a technical perspective, and then we'll talk about what we can do to ameliorate your concerns, help alleviate any problems that you may have. I want to start by showing you a graph. You know, I love my graphics. This may go some way into explaining a number of things. I'll show you the graph and then I will talk to it, and hopefully it will make clear sense. This particular graph that I'm going to show you, it shows a very, very interesting curve, and this curve is widely used in reliability engineering and also in deterioration modeling. And let's face it, if you're getting a brush that is falling apart, reliability is a word that comes to mind, or lack thereof, and also what happens over time with this expected deterioration. So without further ado, let me show you this graph. This is what they call a bathtub curve for obvious reasons. It looks like a bathtub, as you can see, and the curve, as I said, is widely based and used in reliability engineering and deterioration modeling. Now, it describes a particular form of function which basically occurs in 3 stages, as you can see there. When you purchase the brush, then you'll see that as soon as you take it out of the out of its box, there's no shedding at all, and then or if there's likely to be any shedding, you'll get it when you first buy this product. It will shed for probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 shaves, possibly 5. Sometimes it may shed for 8 shaves, and then it'll go into what's called a useful life period, which means this is the normal life of the brush. So you buy it, and then there's a decreasing failure rate. In other words, the brush still does what it's supposed to do. It functions the way it is supposed to function. And until we enter that second, flatter part of the bathtub curve. And here, this is a constant failure rate or random failures. You might get a random failure here and there, which means you might get the odd hair coming out of your brush here and there, but it should not happen for the lifetime of the brush. What is the lifetime of the brush, I hear you ask? It could be 5 years, it could be 15 years, and if you look after your brush carefully, there's no reason why it couldn't be 25 to 30 years. In the third part of that graph, to the right of that graph, we start to see an increasing failure rate. Now, this is also called the normal wear-out phase. So you'll see that to the right there, it is to be expected that the brush will, after a period of time, start to lose hairs again. So it's either going to lose it when you first purchase the brush and use it for the first 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times, right? That's to be expected. Then there will be a period of very, very flat, no shedding period. You might get random hairs coming off the brush. That's to be expected. And we'll talk about what some of those things might be, why you're likely to get that sort of shedding to occur. And then towards the end of the life of the brush, and again, that depends on your use and depends on your experience with the brush. It depends on how you use the brush, how frequently you use the brush, then you would expect it to start to lose hairs again. I have had people bring in their brushes and some of them look like they don't look good. Okay, they look a little tired. Some of them still came in and they were a bit wet and tired. So yes, it all depends. It depends on user case, and your particular mileage or your particular carnage may vary. It depends. It depends on what you do. So you purchase a brush like so. You expect it to work really, really well. And then the next thing you know is it starts to shed. Like, I don't know if you can see that. There's a few little shedders there. You might be able to see that. A few little hairs coming off there. Okay. So you think, okay, those are a few loose hairs. I'll cop that. That's fine. But you shouldn't be copping it for more than 5 or 6 or 7 shapes. If you do, please contact the manufacturer or the person that you purchased the brush from, and I'm sure that yours is not the first case they've seen. They will try and get it swapped out for you and assist you in that way. So that can happen. What have we got here? Graph also possibly shows the discomfort rate of taking a bath, too hot, just right, not too. Yes, absolutely. The Goldilocks effect, the not too hot, not too cold, but the just right effect. So, as I say, you're going to have problems with the brush shedding. It's going to happen in the very beginning, obviously. I mean, there's nothing astounding about that, but it shouldn't continue to happen beyond. I think if you're losing, I don't know, say 8 or 9 hairs every time you shave for 5 or 6 shaves, it may be time to call the business that you purchased it from, but even the brush manufacturer, and just say, look, got a problem here. I'm losing hair at a great rate of knots. I can relate to this, of course. I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that can relate to it as well. In that case, the brush needs to be replaced. Now, why does this happen? Well, it does happen with synthetic brushes, but typically you find that it occurs with animal hair brushes. Animal hair brushes are a natural product. They're an organic product. And it is one of those things that, because of the way it was manufactured, because of, animal hair has to be brought together, and they put it in a little collar, and then they bring together all the fibers and usually put them in a resin plug, which looks something like this, right? So if you can imagine, these hairs were put together and then set in this particular resin. And they've got to sit like that in a brush handle. Now, if for any reason there are some hairs that are shorter than others, they're going to come out. They'll pop out. So that's usually why you might get those in the first few shaves. The other thing is, and this is very important, I mean, I think, I'll put some notes up just so as you know, the knot quality is very important. If you don't have a good quality knot to start with, in other words, if the manufacturer hasn't utilized the best possible knot they can for that brush, they may not be selling it as a top knot, brush. They might just say, look, this is a cheap and cheerful budget brush, so don't expect too much from it. So knot quality obviously is very, very important. The other thing is that the manufacturing process and how the knots are stored. If you're storing these knots in an environment that's quite unstable, where, sometimes it's getting hot and cold and wet in particular, an environment, water, moisture is a real problem, then that is going to have some say in the integrity of the knot and how it keeps its fibers together. So the manufacturing process and the knot quality are very, very important. These are things obviously that are common sense. And of course then it's user care, and how you actually use the brush, whether you like splaying the brush. There are a lot of people that like to splay and really get in there and try and get a real, I don't know what the fascination is with all of that, but anyway, it's I remember when I first, there you go, oh look, there you go, there's some hairs there if you can see them. It's incredible. They're just all falling out as we speak. I remember when I first got into shaving with a brush, I'd really get in there and give it a good scrub. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Just take care of the brush. Taking care of the brush could also mean cleaning it frequently with a brush cleaner or some very, very mild detergent, which will remove the soap scum, which also assists in the longevity of the brush. These things are very, very important. And also making sure that the brush dries as much as it possibly can. Look, the debate about whether you should hang your brush up or not, I did a video many, many years ago. Please don't go and watch it. I urge you not to go and watch it, where I said that part of taking care of a brush meant that you should hang it up, put it up on a stand. Now, stands are very nice. They're all great. And of course, the idea behind putting it on a stand is that the gravity will then draw and wick the water away. Quite often when you have a very thick brush, now let me get rid of this very nice graphic. Quite often when you have a very thick brush like that, no matter what you do, water will stay in the knot, okay? And no amount of gravity is going to bring that water out. It needs to be aired out. Airing the brush is more important than hanging it upside down. So the debate about whether you should have your brush hanging upside down or the right way up or whatever it's contentious. I have come to change my view on this. I like hanging my brushes up, but I don't know that megalitres of water is coming out of them, and that has to do with the cohesive forces of water, how it attaches itself to the brush. More importantly is to really give it a good dry on a towel. Make sure you try and physically wick away as much of the water as possible, and then leave it out in a place where it can air itself out. And of course, that also depends on the season that you're in, where you live, whether you live in an environment that's very, very dry or whether you live in a very humid environment. Again, your particular case will vary depending on all of those things. We've got a comment here. Yes, I've had my Samoa boar brush 3 years. It didn't shed until recently. Interesting. So this is the third phase, David, of that that deterioration that is to be expected. Again, perhaps you wanted your brush to last 13 years or so. Some brushes do. There are variations. I know no matter how much a brush manufacturer tries to bring in tries to eliminate those variables which are going to create an inconsistent product, they try as hard as they can to manufacture at scale or produce. And I'm talking about large companies such as Simog, but also at the same time, so produce a high number of products, but also make sure that there is a level of quality assurance. 3 years for a bore brush. Now, bore brushes tend to go through quite a bit, and they're in my experience, and with what I've seen with people and what they've bought into the store, people tend to hold on to bore brushes probably a little longer than they should. I have held on to a couple of bore brushes of mine for sentimental reasons. Quite often, a lot of people have had them handed down from their father or their grandfather or whatever, because that was typically the brush of choice in those days. But in that instance, I tend not to use the brush anywhere near as much, or in fact, I retire the brush, I put it away, and I just keep it and admire it on the shelf. I don't use it. Barbers love boar hair brushes because they're inexpensive and they can go through them. They're not, if they're dropping $120, let's say, for a badger hair brush and using it on their customers, which is another debate again, then when it comes time to replace the brush, they're replacing a $120 object as opposed to one that may have cost them $15, $20. In fact, you get boar brushes for $10. And price in that instance, you do get what you pay for. So you've got to be careful about all of that. So is it normal for a Simog brush 3 years? Probably not. I'm just wondering, David, when you say it sheds, is it continually shedding now, or you've just noticed lately that you've just lost a couple of hairs and that's it? I'd like to know. That'd be interesting to hear. Look, it sounds about right. With a boar brush, boar brushes start off being quite firm, have a lot of backbone, and then they sort of soften and do what boar brushes do oh so beautifully, and that is reward the user with, but you've got to look after them, and they are more than likely to retain water in the knot, which will over time, if the water sits in there, as I said, it deteriorates this plug, and then it may start to give off its hairs. It may say, look, it's time, it's time that we said goodbye. We parted ways. That has been my experience. So a couple of things. Borax. A lot of people like using borax. A boric acid solution. Just turn it into a paste and rub it into the brush. Leave it and then wash it out. Rinse it thoroughly. That ensures that you're not going to have a build-up of any fungal or bacterial material there, which could also weaken the integrity of the knot, and then also have it shed. Sometimes knots snap rather than coming off at the plug there. They will snap halfway. Like half of it will snap. If that's happening after having had the brush for some time, then my immediate feeling on that is to make sure you clean it, because what happens is that when it comes in contact with shaving creams and soaps, you use the brush, it dries with the soap scum, ever so thin film of, it can be very, very sort of thin coating on the fibers, and it dries, gets wet, dries, gets wet, more product, and then all of a sudden it snaps, midway. That probably has to do more with keeping your brush in tip-top shape. Okay, so David has said that it's a few hairs after each shave. Yeah, methinks, David, that you're probably in that third phase of normal wear out on your on the brush, unfortunately. Yes. An engineer would tell you that according to deterioration modelling, And reliability of the product, you're in that third phase, and your failure rate, unfortunately, is just going to increase with now with the age of the brush. It's just one of those things. Peg Leg has joined us. So, only shaving brush I have is a 1928-42 Mohawk 338 bore brush, but I know how it feels. When you get old, the hair goes. Yes, I know, my friend, it does go. Yeah. Look, and some bore brushes do look very, very tired. They look like they've been, they may have even been to the Boer War. It was a pun. I'm sorry about that pun. I shouldn't. Anyway. Yes. It's just one of those things. Michael, thanks for joining us on the live. Michael says he keeps the glue plug out of the hot water, whatever brush I'm using, and haven't had a problem with shedding. I need to clean my favourite two-band razor. Yes, you do, Michael. I think it's a good idea. Yes. That's another thing. I've seen people put, they put their entire brush in the water. If I'm going to soak a brush, I'm only going to soak it to there and really wring it out. Of course, if it's a synthetic brush, I don't soak it at all. But these animal hair brushes, clearly they require a little bit more care, and that will ensure the longevity. So that's it, really. I think those things, if you're just mindful of those particular things, you should be able to have the brush last. Also, combing out, I like to sort of detangle the brush from time to time. And so what I do is I use a brush cleaner, a detergent. I will not be going into a shameless plug of the amazing brush cleaner that we carry here. I would, but I'm not. And soak it for half an hour. Then I let it dry. Then I detangle. Then I go back and wash it again and get rid of any other material that's there. But that also assists in that. But keeping the brush dry and using it. Look, as I said to you earlier, when I first started with wet shaving and with brushes, I really gave the brushes a real workout. I was sitting there rubbing, and it was like I was, I was treating it like it owed me money or something, and that ended up costing me money because I would destroy the brush. As you get a little bit older, of course, you know that it's about the using a technique. Taking your time with it. You don't need to, you're not beating an egg or anything like that. Well, you shouldn't be anyway, not with a shave brush. And then I found that the brushes were able to. So you learn how to keep the brush in tip-top shape, and that, of course, assists in extending the life of that particular the useful life period of the brush. Now, you'll note there that I didn't put any figures there because it's all arbitrary. That first shedding failure rate, it could be 5 shaves, it could be 10 shaves. That middle period there of the what they call the useful life period, where you might get a random hair or two shedding, I mean, that could be anywhere from 3 years to 15 years to 20 years. But if it's 20 years, I suspect you're probably only shaving with it once, every once in a while. Right. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to leave them below. Do you use a brush holder? Do you think that that's an important part of keeping your brush dry, or is it a bit of a gimmick? I mean, it keeps the brush kind of neat and tidy and over there on the shelf or whatever, but does it have any real function in keeping your brushes dry? I am guilty as charged. I've changed my opinion, or I've kind of modified my opinion. I'm not suggesting that there is absolutely no benefit in hanging your brushes, but the amount of water that you would want wicking out of that brush, I think, can be assisted more by using a towel and to physically run the towel over the hairs, and to try and draw out as much water as possible, and then keeping it in an airy place. Don't put it away in your shaving cabinet, or you'll have some difficulties. Dave is on the live as well. The bathtub scale is used for my personal head of hair. The useful period was not long enough. Yes, Dave. I remember those days. Look, I think hair is largely overrated, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm quite happy with what I have now. I save a lot of money in barbering fees, although I do miss the camaraderie, going into a barber shop and having discussions and shooting the breeze and having discussions. But yes, I can relate to you. The bathtub scale, as I said, is a general curve that's used for all manner of things. Hair loss may be one of them. Not only losing hair on a brush. I think it's probably time we did a quick product spotlight. We'll do a quick product spotlight, and then we'll wrap up the live. Yes, in today's product spotlight, I have proudly an Australian product. It is this Lucamar balm, which I absolutely love. It comes in this sort of retro tin. It's fantastic stuff. It's a balm. Now, look, I've got to say, it's a lanolin-based and anhydrous lanolin-based product, which is great. I like this particular formulation because of how it feels at room temperature. So you don't need a blowtorch to soften it and then, apply it and all the rest of it. This is pretty good straight out of the can. I love it. I love the scent. The reason I wanted to bring this to your attention is that there have been some, and I myself have also questioned just how good products are when they can do more than one thing. That 3-in-1 thing or the 2-in-1 thing. Why don't you just stick to one, just stay in? But sometimes WD-40 is better and is good for more than just one thing. This is not WD-40 in a can, but what it is a beautiful balm that you can put in your goatee or beard and style it. It'll give you a nice light hold. It's also good if you've got tattoos. It keeps the ink nice and vibrant. And of course, it provides a nice moisturizing layer for your skin. So it's pretty good. It's good for guys that have beards, goatees, and all the rest of it. It's made in Australia, $16. It'll last you a long, long time. It's got like a frankincense scent. It's really, really nice. They also do it as a general balm, which isn't designed for for beards in particular, but it's great for hands and elbows and feet and whatever. If you're walking around in sandals all day or barefoot, then you know that sometimes your heels may require some attention. If they do, check out this Lucamar, proudly Australian product. We do ship them overseas if required as well. I love the tin because you can use it again and again, and this was one of the decisions that the manufacturers made. They said, no, we wanted to put it in a container that can be reused. It reminds me of the mint container. Anyway, it's quite nice. It's got that sort of real, that really nice sort of retro feel about it. It's no coincidence. People want to go back to products that are, that come in containers that can be utilised for more than just its single use, intended use. You could use that for all sorts of things. I don't know, safety pins, drawing pins, nuts, bolts, part of an engine chassis or whatever it is that you're doing. If you're into modelling or whatever, then you can use that for all your bits and pieces. Thoroughly recommend it. It's a good product. It really does work, and it comes in a couple of sizes as well. Won't set you back more than, as I said, they start at $16 and go up to about $24.95. Very inexpensive given the current state of play that we are in. Well, that was Product Spotlight. Yes, David has told us that going back to the brush thing, I only use the same brush. Okay, well, David, that in that case, 3 years with a Semogue brush, I think is pretty damn good. I think it's very, very good. If that is the only brush that you use, then you're doing very, 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 very well. Semogues are quite reasonably priced. They're very approachable. They're quite a good brand, a reputable brand that comes out of Portugal. And I think if that's all you've been using and you're only starting to now shed after 3 years, and I'll assume that you shave every day. So if you're using the brush every day, or even every other day, let's say every other day or every 2 or 3 days, then that's a pretty good thing. I mean, should you be looking at another brush? I don't know. That, of course, is entirely up to you. But thanks for sharing that, David. Shot in the Dark has said, they've taken a shot in the dark here and said that it's a good show. Thank you. I really appreciate your very kind words. That's very kind of you. Well, the time has come for me to get out of your faces and to allow you to reclaim your bandwidth and do what it is you normally do. David tells me, so it's David daily. There it is. It's in black and white daily. That's how often he uses the brush. I think you've done a remarkable job there, David. I think 3 years daily on the same ball brush, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Anyway, time has come for me to go. As I said, we'll see you in the next live. Thanks for watching. Take care.